Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. We are still in chapter 48. This is 48F, and this one is called The 5 Secrets of the Redemption. Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim shabachu kol haumim ki gavar alenu chasdo ve'emet Adonai le'olam. Hallelujah. Rabbi Ishmael says, there are 5 fingers on the right hand of God, and each is a foundation or secret of a redemption. As we know, 5 fingers make up the hand, right? And we can see these allusions throughout the Tanakh. In almost every case, the text usually says the hand of God, but like all things with God, everything is perfect, and there's no such thing as either early or late. En mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. That's what we said in Hebrew. So, in any case, nothing is disproportionate or not enough. Everything is perfect. For instance, Exodus 7:4. But Pharaoh will not hearken to you, and I will lay my hand upon the Egyptians, and I will take my legions, my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt with great judgments. Exodus 14:31. And Israel saw the great hand which the Lord had used upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and Moses his servant. Now there are a few times where fingers are mentioned as well, right? Like Exodus 8:15. So the necromancer said to Pharaoh, it is the finger of God, but Pharaoh's heart remained steadfast, as he did not hearken to them, as the Lord had spoken. And Exodus 31:18. When he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of testimony, stone tablets, written with the finger of God. So the hand symbolizes might, strength. And even when it comes to our power and capabilities, as said in Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the hand of the tongue, right? So power, strength, actually doing something. So we get the idea. But now, thanks to Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, we get to see which one of God's metaphorical fingers was used for which specific action throughout the Tanakh, as each is a great secret and a foundation of a redemption. A redemption. There have been a few, right? So we're going to start with the pinky. Okay, the pinky, also known as the little finger. With his little finger, he showed Noah what to do in the ark, as said in Genesis 6:15. And this you shall make it, v'zeh asher ta'aseh ota. The ring finger, also known as the second finger. With his second to smallest finger, he smote Egypt, as said in Exodus 8:15. So the necromancer said to Pharaoh, it is the finger of God. So now we know that it was this one. Again, this is according to Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. The middle finger, also known as the middle finger, with his third finger from the smallest, right? 1, 2, 3. This is where he wrote the tablets, as said in Exodus 31:18. When he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of testimony, stone tablets written with the finger of God. Now, why is this the middle finger? Okay, very interesting. The 5 books of Moses correspond to the 5 fingers of the hand. Also, the Torah is likened to the hand of God, the whole hand of God, and each book represents a different finger. The Rebbe Milubavitch of blessed memory said that the book of Leviticus, right, the 3rd book, obviously, it represents the middle finger, and it's known as the heart of the Torah because it is in the center. Why is this considered the heart of the Torah? And guess what? God gave us the 10 commandments with that very finger, meaning with the heart of the Torah. What is the heart of the Torah? For the same reason, the Gentiles specifically don't know what to do with the book of Leviticus, so they just dismiss it. So yes, you have the book of Genesis, how it all began. You have Exodus, God's name revealed to the world and the power that it carries. You have the book of Numbers and the trials and lessons learned. And of course, you have the epic conclusion and transfer of power in the book of Deuteronomy. But Leviticus, the heart of the Torah, also known as Torat Kohanim, the instruction of the priests, it is the very essence of the 5 books, because that is the very formula that God commanded for us to do on the holiest spot, on the holiest mountain, in the holiest city, in the only land that is holy. It all comes down to Leviticus. All these stories that we get before and after Abraham walked here, Isaac did this, Jacob did that, and later on Moses said this, and so on and so forth, the wars and everything. It all comes down to what we need to do on Temple Mount. That is the true rectification of the world. Everything before was leading up to that, and everything after that is how to put it into practice. So there's a reason that God told us that the offerings may never cease, not on any day. There's a reason God said this, and so we have to take that seriously, not say, nah, it's all done away with. This is the epitome of the rectification of the world through purity and sanctity. And it all begins with making ourselves holy, right? As God told us, you shall make yourselves holy through the laws and commands that I give you, all the laws and all the commands that I give you, because I am holy, says the Lord. Kedoshim to you, ki kadosh ani. Amar Hashem Elohim. To go off one's own understanding and say that any of this had been done away with is just, it's nuts. God said. All right. The fourth finger, also known as the index finger. The fourth finger from the smallest, 1, 2, 3, 4, next to the thumb, so, we're not confused, is what the Holy and Blessed be He used to show Moses what Israel will give as a ransom for their lives, as said in Exodus 30:13. This they shall give, ze itnu, everyone who goes through the counting, half a shekel according to the holy shekel. 20 gerahs equal to 1 shekel, half of such a shekel shall be an offering to the Lord. So, this is a big one, right? As God is showing Israel that they can never be whole without their brethren. That's why we're supposed to give half a shekel. So, in one sense, it's God that's completing the shekel. In the other sense, I give half, you give half, and it keeps on going half and half and half and half and half, right? In other words, it's all of us or it is none of us. The thumb and the whole hand. The thumb is connected to the whole hand. You'll see why. With that, the Holy and Blessed be He will show the might of His arm and His splendor to the whole world. By doing what with it exactly? By destroying all the sons of Esav, the Western world, Christianity, who have oppressed Tsarin on Israel, as well as all the sons of Ishmael, the Arab world, Islam, who are his enemies, Oyev, as said in Micah 5:8. So we have Tsarin, oppressors, and Oyevim, enemies. Okay, these two. Esav is the oppressor, enemy is Ishmael. Micah 5:8 says, your hand, whole hand, shall be raised above your oppressors, Esav, and all your enemies, Ishmael, shall be destroyed. There it is. Thus saith the Lord. So guess what? It's going to happen. This is an interesting verse because it speaks of the two other religions. They came out of the loins of Abraham and then Isaac, which is why Jacob was called Israel. As all who came from his loins were good and shall remain good, meaning exclusively from Jacob. That's why Edom and Ishmael are the leaders of the 70 nations, because they came from his bloodline. That's the only reason they got to where they are. Whenever it uses, and again, in this world, because they have no world to come, so that's why they got everything because of Zchut Avot, because of the merit of their fathers. So whenever it uses the term oppressor and enemy, you know it is speaking of these two, both in the past, present, and of course future. Even though they were only invented between 1700 and 1400 years ago, both these religions, their root, the root of Esav and Ishmael, were around beforehand, the spiritual root. Lamentations 4:12, what does it say? The kings of the earth did not believe, nor all the inhabitants of the world, that a foe and enemy, tsar ve'oyev, oppressor and enemy, could enter the gates of Jerusalem. This has happened again and again and again until this very day, and will soon, once more, it'll happen once again, when God will obliterate them right here in Jerusalem, the city of judgment. That's why he's going to bring them all to Jerusalem. You wanted to take Jerusalem? This is where you will fall. Esther 7:6. Vatomer Esther, ish tsar ve'oyev. And Esther said, an adversary, or tsar, an oppressor and an enemy, this evil Haman. Haman was Persian, but also from the root of Amalek. Persian, but also from the root specifically of Ishmael. So you have Amalek from Esav, and you have Ishmael. Two of them are joined together. Here we see a combination of the two in Haman, as the Babylonian kingdom would fuse into the Persian, making Haman as part of Ishmael, like we said. But since he was considered Amalek, which comes from Esav, we see that there is a certain spirit regardless of the actual bloodline. We all know that the Nazis are Amalek, right? Why? Why does everybody say, like, it's widely agreed upon, the Nazis are Amalek? Because they wanted to exterminate the Jews, right? And when Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, I remember this, of blessed memory, called the peace-loving, friendly Arabs, our neighbors from Gaza, all around us, they called them Amalek. All around our borders, they said they're all Amalek. People were losing their minds. What are you talking about? Arabs are Ishmael, surely. Well, yes, but Amalek, it can manifest in anyone from any nation, even the Erev Rav from within our own nation. Our sages wrote this 2,000 years ago. The Erev Rav are going to rule Israel, meaning these people are born Jews. You could have a bloodline going back 1,000 years. It doesn't matter because they have the spirit of Amalek. That's what Erev Rav is, by the way, the mixed multitude. They're not external. Erev Rav is internal with Israel. What they all have in common, every last one of them, is their hatred towards the Jews. And that is externally. And from within our ranks, it is hatred towards God-fearing, Torah-observant Jews. This we have seen plenty of times. In fact, this is really what brought about the what happened. Just talking about it already is like, what's the point? Anyway, there are plenty of hints towards these two false religions with their two false prophets in the Torah and in the Tanakh as well. They are represented by wood, the cross, and stone, the rock in Mecca and Medina, right? Deuteronomy 4, and the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, meaning all the peoples, right? And you will remain few in number among the nations to where the Lord will lead you. And there you will worship gods, lowercase g, right? Elohim. Elohim acherim, other gods, meaning not really gods. You're the ones that are giving them power. Man's handiwork, wood and stone, right there, which neither see, hear, eat, or smell. Deuteronomy 28:36. The Lord will lead you and your king, whom you will have established over you, to a nation unknown to you or your fathers, and there you will serve other deities. Ve'avadat sham Elohim acherim. It's va'evan, of wood and stone. This is not a coincidence that these two are mentioned here. And you will become an object of astonishment. Why? An example and a topic of discussion among all the peoples to whom the Lord will lead you. And there are many other places in the Tanakh as well. This is an obvious allusion to these two religions, as no one today in the classic sense builds idols of wood or stone and believes that they actually have power. This is hinting towards the times of the end, which we are currently in, and what is going to happen. In the end, God will not only use a finger, nor will he settle for using his entire hand, but everything is going to be revealed when it comes to taking vengeance upon the nations against Israel. As said in Isaiah 52:10, the Lord has revealed his holy arm. You ain't getting all the fingers. You're not only getting the fist, you're getting the whole arm before the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. In other words, that is God with Israel against the nations, all the nations. When he, God, destroys who he calls the oppressor and the enemy, Edom and Ishmael. This stuff is all written down. Rabbi Eliezer says there are 5 letters in the Torah that have been doubled, and they are within the secrets of the redemption. So before we run with this, we need to explain. These are the 5 letters in Hebrew, in the Hebrew Aleph Bet, obviously, that are used at the ends of the words, and their form changes. Okay, so for instance, these are the Mansapach letters. Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chaf. That's how we kind of read it, right? So there are 22 letters of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. With them, it's then considered 27 in total, but really it's 22, okay? So if anyone asks you, there are 22 letters, all right? We don't want people to get more confused than what they are. Now, as we count these 5 and how they have been implemented, see if you can notice yet another layer of spiritual depth and significance. So again, these 5 letters, they could be used in the middle of a word or at the end of the word. For instance, I'll give you an example, Mitzrayim and Mitzrayimah. You'll see in the book of Genesis, when it refers to Egypt, English it all says Egypt. In the book of Genesis, it says Mitzrayimah. Why ma? Because the mem before the hey is open, right? When that mem is the last letter of the word, Mitzrayim, that means it's a closed mem. Why do we see in Genesis that it's Mitzrayimah and now in Exodus it's Mitzrayim? Because like we've learned, when anybody entered Egypt, they could no longer leave. So Egypt was open for the coming, Mitzrayimah, open, but when they wanted to leave, particularly Israel, they could not leave Mitzrayim, mem skura, a closed mem, because Egypt was sagul, closed. So now let's get into these letters according to the order that Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer gives us. So we're going to begin with the letter Chaf, okay? Chaf, Kaf, but Chaf. By this letter, Abraham was redeemed from Ur Kasdim, as said in Genesis 12:1. Vayomer Adonai el Avram, lech lecha cha. That's the letter, and that's at the end of the word, right? Lech lecha, you have the double cha, the double chaf, hinting at the letter. And its connection to the first finger on our list, which is the pinky, we discussed with Noah. So that's chaf. With his little finger, he showed Noah what to do in the ark. Okay? Because we have learned that Noah was saved. Now, what's the connection? Noah was saved for the sake of Abraham, through whose merit the world was created. As we read in Genesis 4:22. That's Exodus. Genesis 2:4. Ele toldot hashamayim va'aretz behi bara'am. The word behi bara'am, when he created them, is an anagram for be'avraham, as in God created the heavens and the earth through Abraham, for the sake of Abraham. Meaning that the generations of the heavens and the earth were filtered through Abraham for God to create earth and heaven. Beautiful. Also, we know that Noah passed the torch to Abraham. The second letter we're going to discuss is the letter Mem, like what we discussed before with Egypt. By this letter, Isaac was redeemed from the hand of the Philistines, as said in Genesis 26:16. Vayomer Avimelech el Yitzchak, lech me'imanu ki atzamta mimenu me'od. There's the double mem. And Avimelech said to Isaac, go away from us, for you have become much stronger than us. It says, than we. That's how it's translated. Mimenu. So you have lech lecha, the double kaf. Here you have mimenu, the double mem. Now, what's the connection between Isaac and Egypt? I mean, that should be obvious. You guys should know this, right? So as we read earlier, with his second smallest finger, he smote Egypt. In addition to the two mems in the word Mitzrayim, it was by the merit of Isaac that the children of Israel were redeemed from Egypt to begin with. Isaac was born on the very day of the Exodus. So we know when Isaac's birthday is, exactly 400 years later, boom, they're out of there. And that's when the countdown to the prophecy began, the moment Isaac was born, 400 years later to the day Israel left Egypt. There is a numerical hint in this as well, as mem equals 40. 2 mems equals 80. What What, pray tell, is the number 80 significant when it comes to Egypt, right? How old was our Redeemer, Moses, when he got the call? But 80 years old. Next, we have the letter Nun, okay? Nun and Nun. They sound the same in the middle and in the end. So does Mem. All right. By this letter, Jacob was redeemed from Esav, as said in Genesis 32:12. Hatzileni na. N. Two nuns. Hatzileni na. Now deliver me from the hand. Wow, there's just... You're just losing it in the English. Anyway, please save me. That's what it says there, but it doesn't even say that in English. So what is the correlation between Jacob, aka Israel, and what we read before? With his third finger from the smallest, he wrote the tablets. Jacob instructed his children in the ways of God, as we have learned. This already began with Abraham, who kept every mitzvah he could from the Torah before it was given to the world. In other words, he kept all the mitzvot of the Torah. It says, even Eruv Tavshilin. Because the entire purpose of creation is to elevate this world, uniting the physical and spiritual, and the catalyst for that is for Israel to receive the means and instructions to do so, i.e. the Torah. That's why you call it the law, but it's not the law. Torah comes from the word hora'ah, instruction. Hey, I made this world. In order for you to navigate this world, here is an instruction manual. Follow that, you'll be okay. That's it. And the single idea for reality existing in the first place is the emphasis, and the emphasis is on the first, is Israel. If we take the first and the last words in the Torah, you get Bereshit, and the last word is Israel. At first, Israel. And if you want to read it backwards, right? The Torah is not necessarily linear. You get Israel at first. Israel Bereshit. Bereshit Israel. You can't read this wrong. Israel is called the first. Reshit Tvuat Hashem, right? The first fruits of God is Israel. And even if we look at the very first and last letters in the Torah, right? You get Bet, Bereshit, and Israel, Lamed. Bet and Lamed. Lamed Bet. Together, that says Lev, heart. What is the crux of the issue? Why was everything created for Israel? End of story. Before action comes thought, always, right? So that's the world of emanation. From the world of emanation, you have the world of creation, and then you have the world of formation, and then you have the world of action, which is what we're in. So before anything that we do, well, we should think before we do, right? So this is kind of how God works, and this is how we can see the universe being governed. So before action comes thought, which is likened to the heart as well as the mind. When it says your heart is also your mind. In certain instances, yes, in other instances they're separate, but when it comes to these specific topics, they are one and the same. For it carries intent, right? In other words, I'm thinking about doing it, but why do I want to do it? What is the driving force between that's going to cause me to do that? That's where the heart and mind are actually one. And so the intent of God in the very plain text is and always was and always will be Israel. Plain and simple. Moving on to the next letter, we have Pei, okay? By this letter, our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. As said in Exodus 3:16, go and assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord God of your forefathers has appeared to me, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I have surely remembered you and what is done to you in Egypt. We totally get it from that, right? No, we don't. ואספת את זקני ישראל ואמרת אליהם, אדוני אלוהי אבותיכם נראה אליי, אלוהי אברהם, יצחק ויעקב לאמור. Here's the double pay. פקוד פקדתי אתכם ואת העשו אליכם במצרים. What is the significance of this? Why did God tell Moses to say these two words to the elders? Because this was code, specifically one left by Joseph back in the last 3 verses of Genesis. Joseph said to his brothers, I am going to die. God will surely remember you. I don't know why that means remember, but Vayomer Yosef elechav anochi met ve'elohim pakod ifkod etchem. These 2 words God through Ruach HaKodesh, Joseph gave it to his brethren, and that was passed along. Vaishava Yosef et bnei Israel emo pakod yifkod Elohim atchem. And Joseph adjourned the children of Israel, saying, God will surely remember you, how it's poorly translated. And Joseph died at the age of 110 years, and they embalmed him, and he was placed into a coffin in Egypt. So along comes Moses. Everyone knew who he was. He was the Hebrew child raised in the house of Pharaoh. He was the prince of Egypt. 60 years after he fled because of two of his own people turned on him, Datan and Aviram, he returns to Israel because now it's the time of the redemption. We just read it this week, didn't we? Why were they so confused? Why? Right? Because the prophecy of Abraham, Genesis 15:13, and he said to Abram, you shall surely know that your seed, meaning what comes from you, specifically he said, your promise will continue with Isaac, not with Ishmael, will be strangers in the land that is not theirs, and they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. So it says 400 years Israel were supposed to be in the land of Egypt, right? And they all knew this. I mean, Jacob was the grandson. His kids, Abraham was their great-grandfather. They, of course, knew exactly all these prophecies. And, of course, it was one family that came there. Everyone knew this, and they were looking forward to this. But were they actually in Egypt for 400 years? No, they were not. They were in Egypt for 210 years total. There is a hint to this in Genesis 42, 1-2. Jacob saw that there was grain being sold in Egypt. So Jacob said to his sons, why do you appear sated? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is grain being sold in Egypt. Go down there and buy us some from there so that we may live and not die. Redu shama. So the word redu, descend, go down there. Reish Dalet Vav translates to go down there, has a numerical value of 210. How long are you, my children of Israel, going to be in Egypt? 210 years right there. So we see that God shortened their overall time in Egypt by what? 190 years, which also there is a hint in the same parsha, Genesis 41:1. Vayhi miketz shnatayim yamim. Miketz is end. Miketz from the end. 190 years. Ketz, the numerical value is 190. God took off from the end 190 years. You get it? There's your 400. And yet still there is another problem. And they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. They were enslaved for how long? For 86 out of the 210 years. So you see what God did in the first redemption, he will also do in the final redemption. Also, the other thing over there, we just discussed this in the group, that I couldn't understand when they were leaving Egypt. It said, and Israel dwelt in Egypt for 430 years. But Israel were never there for 430 years. So why did God shorten it from the beginning and from the end? Because he didn't want to keep them there for 400 full years. He wanted to shorten the time of the redemption. But in order for that to happen, everything is measure for measure. Nothing can be thrown out. So it's like you can either have a sentence of 400 years with like somewhat okay labor, or we're going to stuff it all into 86 years of hard labor. That's it, because between that, from the 210 years minus the 86, they were living very well. You get it? So it was the equivalent of 430 years stuffed down into just 86 years. And when it says, Vayetzu Yisrael chamushim miMitzrayim, when Israel left, it said chamushim. We're talking about a fifth, meaning it was 20%, a fifth only left. But also, if you take 86, which is Elohim, and if you read the end of chapter 2 in Exodus, if it says 5 times Elohim over there, there's another 5 for you. 5 times Elohim, numerical value of Elohim, which is judgment also, that is 86. 86 times 5, 430. These 5 judgments of God were packed into 86 years, and there you have the equivalent of 430 years from the time the prophecy was given to the time that it was actually manifest. Boom, everything fits perfectly. So it wasn't according to the actual time in this physical world, but spiritually speaking, what was condensed into that amount of time. So like we said, just as it was in the first redemption, God will also do this in the final redemption. He delays it so more people will do tshuva. If Mashiach would come today, well, let's put it like this. Mashiach is not coming today because we're not worthy of being redeemed as of now. Maybe in an hour or so, God willing, we will be. Our faith dictates we believe and we wait every single day. Not in a year, not in 2, not in 3. It's great to go through all these numbers and these timelines, sure. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema בביאת המשיח, ואף על פי שיתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. Every day that he can come. And God says the moment they do tshuva, miyad nigalim. This is all he's waiting for. So over there, they were squeezed. And if we don't do tshuva, God squeezes us. And it is the equivalent of filling up that tshuva tank, if you will. And here comes the Redeemer. So he delays it so more people will do tshuva and be saved. And then he speeds up the time of the end. He brings up the time of the end closer. So you kind of get squished, right? If this is the time, right? If this is, let's say, 400 years, he's delaying it so people do tshuva, but he doesn't want them to sit there the entire time. So he's going to back here. So whatever was here is not getting all squished. That's the intensity. These are also the birth pangs of the coming of Mashiach, right? Milchamot Gog uMagog, the wars of Gog and Magog. It's not just one big war. It's continuous. We're currently in them. People just don't understand, and it fits prophecy perfectly. Let's continue, because I'm just going to go all out of this. Okay, so again, he delays, but he also shortens it from the end. Why? Because otherwise, what kind of redemption will it be if hardly anyone makes it out alive? How would that glorify God if you have 10 people saying, yay, we're with you, God? Right? God needed a nation. He got a nation before. He's getting another one right now, right? 2.0, hopefully. Israel was about to enter into the 50th gate of impurity, and when that happens, it's all over for Israel, and thereby the world. So when Moses came along doing the signs and wonders God showed him by the burning bush, Israel were not impressed, and rightfully so, for 2 reasons. Though it was taken from an unholy place, the Egyptian magicians were somehow able to pull off these bootleg versions of these all these little signs and wonders. And 2, Israel is commanded. We are commanded not to be swayed by signs and wonders. Deuteronomy 13, 2-4. If there will raise among you a prophet or a dreamer of a dream, and he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder of which he spoke to you happens, and he says, let us go to other gods which you have not known, and let us worship them, you shall not heed to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you really love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You see, many people can perform these seemingly supernatural wonders, like, for instance, we said so many times, turning water into wine. The Baba Sali was doing this 40 years ago in rooms filled with people on camera. Did anyone think that he was God or the Son of God for turning water to wine? No, it was just a thing that he could do because we can perform signs and wonders. And that's why God says, don't be impressed by this. The reason he did it, the Baba Sali, I say, is to show Jews what we're capable of doing. And it's not even considered anything supernatural because our place is by default in the supernatural, comparatively speaking to what the world knows. The world is in Hateva. Israel are above Hateva, above that. It comes down to the following, God's instruction, to following God's instruction book that he gave us, the Torah. And if whatever this giver of signs and wonders performs, be he a prophet or other, should they go against the word of God, then that's all that matters. And that's why we don't follow other religions, because they clearly go against the word of God. Christians still can't understand why Jews reject their false prophet, and it's for exactly this reason. I know what y'all say. Yes, he said this and he said that. I'm like, okay, you know 2 things, but there's so many other things that was said over there. I just answered somebody this question before. It's like if I would give you a glass of water to drink, right? Clear water, good water. You're thirsty for water, aren't you? But then I put just 3 drops of poison in the glass. I said, go ahead. You're like, no, the whole thing is corrupt. Now you see, I hope so. Again, for the Lord, your God, is testing you. So the timing from both the beginning and the end prophecy was off, right? It's only been 210 years, but the prophecy says 400 years. It's not our time to be redeemed yet, right? Signs and wonders don't work. And as it is, Israel were so burdened by the daily grind, they could not even receive the Redeemer standing right in front of them. Fortunately, there were a few people who were alive from the time of Joseph who heard him give these secrets, the secret code, to his brothers. And that was Serach, the daughter of Asher. They went to her, telling her everything that had transpired. Wow, this is great. I hope you read last week's Parsha, right? And like them, she was not impressed with the signs and we're going to see it here too, until they repeated what Moses said, Pakod Pakadati. At that moment, she knew and confirmed what they had all been hoping for, yet almost completely dismissed. It was, in fact, the time for the redemption. And just as a cherry on top, since Moses' lips and tongue were burned, he could not even pronounce the letter P, her. They were burned and kind of melted together. So that was another, and he says to God, right in Exodus 4:10, Moses said to the Lord, I beseech you, O Lord, I am not a man of words, neither from yesterday, nor from the day before yesterday, nor from the time you have spoken to your servant, for I am of heavy mouth and of heavy tongue. Burnt his lips and his tongue, so he could not even necessarily pronounce clearly the letter P, right? Then how could he have given this code physically? That's why we can see multitudes within this single section of dialect delivered to Israel. But the Lord said to him, who gave man a mouth? What are you worried about? Don't worry about that. Who makes one dumb or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Don't worry about it, man. I'll make you talk like a puppet. Don't worry. So now go. I will be with your mouth, he says. In other words, God actually spoke from Moses' mouth. And I will instruct you what you shall speak. This was a miracle within a miracle within a miracle. And yet still, we are not impressed by miracles. Show me the Torah. And one more, just for fun. This wraps it up nicely with the bow. Since it was Joseph who left the code and Moses who picked it up, it was Moses' responsibility to bring out Joseph from Egypt, as it was conditional upon their exodus. From Exodus 13:19, Moses took Joseph's bones with him, for he, Joseph, had adjured the sons of Israel, saying, God will surely remember you. Le'emor pakod ifkod Elohim etchem, vehe'eletem et atzmotai mizeh itchem, and you shall bring up my bones from here with you. You ain't leaving Egypt without me, right? Pakod ifkod Elohim etchem. So, started with Joseph, Moses continued. The poor translation, of course, loses everything we just said for these two words by which the redemption is dependent upon. I need to explain this, otherwise you won't even understand the connection to the fourth finger. The fourth finger, okay, from the smallest, next to the thumb, is what the Holy One, blessed be He, used to show Moses what Israel will give as a ransom for their lives, as said in Exodus 30:13. So this is one and the same, the half shekel, right? This they shall give, ze itnu, pakod ifkod Elohim etchem. This happened here with the ransom, pkida, right? So pakod ifkod Elohim etchem, that took place when God demanded the half shekel from them as a ransom for their lives. So this happened here with the ransom for their lives when it came to the half a shekel, Israel's unity and the secret of the redemption. Only united can we be redeemed. That's why, notice, whenever Israel are at peace, the world fears us naturally. I don't know when the last time we were at peace. I mean, maybe, during the 6-Day War. Who knows, right? The world will fear us and armies will fall at our feet. And so the powers that be will cause confusion, conflict, and separation to ensure that this does not happen. Right? So it's so clear what's going on. It's in your face today, everything that's happening right now. This promise that Joseph bound Israel to is what saved them, as they should have been destroyed at the golden calf. But with God, things don't work that way. That's why it was given before to take care of them after. Now, stay with me if you're confused. This action of ransom, or redemption of their lives was given before the sin and implemented after the fact, thereby retroactively redeeming Israel. It's like an insurance policy. You see, from Noah to Abraham, to Moses, back to Isaac, to Jacob, to Joseph, these are all links in a chain, just like every one of Israel. We are all connected, and we are only as strong as our weakest link. I hope you understood everything I just said, because this is poetry, how the way the Torah just presents these things. And the final letter to look at is Tzadik, okay? Tzadik, Tzadi. With this letter, the Holy One, blessed be He, will redeem Israel from the fourth exile, saying to them, Tzemach, tzamachti lachem. There's your double tzadik. Tzemach, tzamachti lachem. A shoot I have raised for you, as said in Zechariah 6:12. Va'amarta elav le'emor, ko amar Adonai tzvaot, le'emor, hine ish tzemach shmo, umitachtav itzmach ubana et eichal Adonai. And you shall speak to him, saying, so said the Lord of hosts, saying, behold, a man whose name is Tzemach, who is the shoot. It says his name is Tzemach, for goodness sakes, who will spring up out of his place and build the temple of the Lord. The Hebrew says Tzemach, which literally means plant or to grow. So who is this plant, or who is this shoot? Jeremiah 23:5, behold, days are coming, says the Lord, when I will set up of David a righteous shoot. Hinei yamim ba'im neum Adonai v'hakimoti leDavid tzemach tzadik, double tzadik right here. And he shall reign king and prosper. And he shall perform judgment and righteousness in the land. V'asa mishpat utzdaka ba'aretz. Okay, mishpat utzdaka. Judgment and mercy in the land. Everything is perfect. The seed of David. And what grown from a seed? What grows from a seed but a shoot, right? That becomes a plant. Tzemach itzmach. This is another obvious allusion towards Mashiach. And not only that, but where he comes from. And when does a plant come from the ground? Right? When does a plant come from the ground? And that's not the only part that we can see. So if it's sticking out of the ground, you're like, oh, it just, no. Meaning the moment Mashiach begins to be revealed, only begins to be revealed, look to the ground, see a little sprout coming out. It's not just a little sprout. Right? This is already after there is a long and extensive root system that has developed over 6,000 years. He's not like, what's going on, world? No, he's connected, right? Because the Spirit has been here from the beginning. The other thing is that this shows us that Mashiach is actually a Baal Tshuva, not coming like this from the clouds, sinless and blameless and holy and divine. Ma pitom, only God is divine. That's crazy to think otherwise. It says coming from the ground, not from the ground. This is why this term is used over and over again. A plant from the ground, from the dirt, amongst the bugs and all the other things is where he comes from. He does not come from the clouds like other religions think. And if they are basing this on Daniel, it's because they have zero understanding of the verses, obviously, not to mention that it's taken out of context, like everything else. How are you going to sit down with the lowliest of the lowliest of the low of Israel if you yourself have not been there? Oh, I know everything, and so I can relate to you. Dude, get out of here. No, you can't. It's like Hollywood celebrities telling everybody else. That's why people are sick of them. Just go back to your $50 million house that is on fire, and please leave us alone. We don't need to take. That's the thing. You need someone who was right there with you. You need someone who actually can relate to you. So you can not only sympathize, but empathize with every Jew saying, my brother, I know exactly where you're at. I've been there myself, and I'm telling you from personal experience, you don't have to remain there. Here's how I got out. Only personal experience. This is also why we must get to the end of our wits, to not have anything left in the tank, to completely cancel ourselves out. A perfect example of this is Abraham and Isaac at the Akedah, at the binding. Abraham is the embodiment of chesed, and Isaac is Gevurah. And yet they had to completely switch roles, thereby canceling their own base nature in order to fulfill God's command. And yes, of course, it was difficult, but they did it out of love and out of zeal. So it wasn't no thing for them. Why? Because there was no ego involved. And only by doing so did they receive the eternal promise. When there is nothing left of our own will, our own wants, our own desires, our own ideas, and our own understandings, which, hey, of course, we all got them. When we clean our slate, but truly clean our slate, that's when we can reveal the Mashiach gene, if you will. Every man of Israel has a spark of Mashiach. The neshama of Mashiach is in every man of Israel. And God will make it so we completely get to that point of surrender. When we do, that's when we connect. But you got to empty out the garbage first. The moment we get 600,000 men ages 20 and up to be on the same wavelength and frequency, Mashiach, the Redeemer, will be revealed. And like we've been saying here for years, do not for a moment think that you can get there on your own. We are not Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. We are the children of Israel, and we need to be squeezed like our forefathers were in Egypt in order for us to cry out to God for the Redeemer. In fact, it's going to be a lot more difficult for us today than it was in Egypt, as it says in Daniel 11 and 12, right? And it will be a time of trouble that the world has never seen before. That's what's going to befall your people. Worse. Never before. Worse than Egypt? Worse than Egypt. So we don't know. We can't even begin to imagine. And all that serves a purpose, obviously, to squeeze the tshuva right out of us. So long as this does not happen, so long as every man from Israel is not doing this, that means that it hasn't gotten tough enough yet. So let's keep reading Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. These 5 letters were given to no one except for Abraham, our father. And Abraham passed them to Isaac, and Isaac passed them to Jacob, and Jacob passed them to Joseph, and Joseph passed them to his brothers. And Asher passed along the secrets of redemption to his daughter Sarah. Okay, Serach. And since we discussed that at that time, she was the only one alive from that time that the secret was actually given. And this is why the elders came to confirm this with her regarding Moses. This is also why the tribe of Ephraim was almost wiped out, because they left early without the signs and confirmations. They also miscalculated, right? They forgot the 30 years of when the prophecy took place. So they said, okay, it's been 400 years since Abraham received the prophecy. Now it's time to go. But they were 30 years too early. Why? Because it didn't start actually when Abraham received the prophecy. He was 70. It started 30 years later when your seed, right? Meaning at the birth of Isaac. So that was that. Okay. Now get this. Right. Okay. So when Moses and Aaron came to the elders of Israel and performed signs and wonders before their eyes, the elders went to Sarah, daughter of Asher, and told her that a man came and performed such and such wonders before our eyes. And she told them, you're going to love this, Ein baotot aele mamash. There is nothing in these signs. I am not impressed with magic and signs and wonders, nor should any Jew be, nor should anyone be. How could she say that? Did God not give Moses the signs to show the people? Oh yes, he did. But a true Jew, back then and today, does not get impressed with signs and wonders. And so why did God do that? Like we said, as it is written in Deuteronomy, in order to test us. They passed. Because like I said, Jews are not impressed by a man making signs and wonders. But then they told her something else. From our text, they said to her, and he told us, Pakod pakadati, terribly translated as, I will surely remember you. To which she replied, that is the man who will redeem Israel from Egypt. For this is what my father told me, pe va mouth to mouth, pe upe, pe el pe, as said in Exodus 3:16, pakod pakadati, the two pays. There are even more hints within these words. We discussed how the exile was shortened by 190 years, hinted in the word ketz, end. The word pakod, as in pakod ifkod, pakod is also equal to 190. And so even within the word itself, she understood that the timeline was real and relevant for their day. Whoa, 190 short. It's today, kids. Well, 1 year from that day, yeah? Her father told her to look out for a pe el pe. So it's pe is also mouth, but it's also letter, but also mouth to mouth. Numbers 12:8. Who was the man Moses? Pe el pe adaber bo. With him I speak mouth to mouth, unambiguously, without riddles, so he can behold the image of God. This is only Moses. This was the guy. And it kept on proving that he was the guy. The elders of Israel understood all these meanings right away. They were not fools, right? Oh, shiny. No. What's the tachlis over here? What do we have? Back then, just like today, our redemption from Egypt is entirely dependent on what comes out of our mouths. Not how strong our army is, or incompetent clearly our government is, but on how we used our truest God-given power. God shall hear Judah's cry, from Deuteronomy 33:7. May this also be for Judah, as in Judah shall live and not die, taking from the blessing of Reuben. So also Judah will live and not die. And he, Moses, said, O Lord, hearken to Judah's voice. Vayomer, Shema Adonai Kol Yehuda ve'el amot avienu, and bring him to his people. Have you read Psalms 85, which is pe, also pe? Just a few verses from this. O Lord, you have appeased your land. You have returned the captivity of Jacob. In other words, we are currently in it, okay? The captivity of Jacob has been returned. I'm not talking about everybody else that doesn't want to be here, that could be here right now. Y'all got your own problems. You have forgiven the iniquity of your people. You have concealed all of their sins forever. That is coming. You have taken all of your wrath. You have retreated from the fierceness of your anger. Also, that is coming. Return us, O God of our salvation, and revoke your anger with us. It's all about the final redemption, which is why when we cry out now, the way they did back then from Exodus 2:23 and 24, right? Now it came to pass in those days, and the king of Egypt had died, and the children of Israel sighed from the labor, and they cried out, and their cry ascended to God from the labor. God heard their cry, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God will send the long-awaited Redeemer to us. And what year are we in today but Tafshin Pei Hey? Peh. We are in the year of the mouth, people. The year that is auspicious for us to cry out, and God will hear our voice. And when we cry out, and when God sends Mashiach, son of David, he will do so as his father did when we finally see the 5 fingers of God, the whole hand come together as one, meaning the son of David, his father, did. Unite the tribes. Okay, from 1 Chronicles 29, verses 10. We'll start with 10. And David blessed the Lord before the eyes of the entire assembly. Public displays of affection. And David said, Blessed are you, the God of Israel, our Father, from everlasting to everlasting. Yours, O Lord, are the greatness and the might and the glory and the victory and the majesty. Lecha Adonai hagdula v'agvura v'atiferet v'anetzach v'ahod ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz lecha Adonai mamlacha v'mitnaseh lechol erosh. Ve'ha'osher v'akavod, this is a prayer, we say this every day, and wealth and honor, and from before you, and you rule over all, and in your hand is strength and might, and it is your hand to magnify, to strengthen all. And now, our God, we give thanks to you and praise your glorious name. So again, Mashiach is going to do what his father David did over there, once again before all Israel, praising God. Now, who am I? And who are my people that we should gather up strength to donate like this? For all is from you, and from your hand we will give to you. The 5 fingers of God, the 5 secrets of the redemption allude to the 5 Sefirot, right? Mercy and judgment and splendor and eternity and majesty. As our text says, and the people believed, for they heard that God, pakad, remembered or redeemed the children of Israel. The moral of the story, kids, know the signs of the times, read the scriptures that our forefathers left us, and do not get swayed by magic tricks. Magic tricks is also media, is also what you see on TV. That's magic tricks, right? Because that's how false religions are also built. So thank you as always for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.